really delicious food. We've got Kaspar talking about some really great wine, and it'll be a little bit educational along the way. So I hope everyone has a great night. And yeah, let's enjoy.
Hey everyone, Kaspar here. Thanks, Raki. Yeah, really looking forward to tonight. It's Friday night. What better way to start the weekend with a bit of Pinot and pasta. So we're going to have look at a couple of Pinots that we make here. And we've selected these particular wines because we feel that they really match Raki's cooking perfectly. And yeah, as Maddie mentioned earlier, any questions you've got about the wine or the food or whatever we're doing, or any sort of random questions that you might have about life in general, we're here to help for the next little while. Yeah, let's have a good time.
All right, so hopefully everybody's got their little gift hamper in front of them. If you don't, grab it out now, and we'll just do a little run through of everything you should have in there. Hopefully everybody got their box delivered. Inside the box, there would have been a little checklist with all of the items that are supposed to be in there. So what I want everyone to do is just grab the box, and we'll just itemize everything that we need for the night. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the mild suppressor, the prosciutto, and the hot suppressor. We're going to grab the cornichons and caper berries, and we're going to get our lavash. And that's going to be the main parts that we need for our sharing board. Secondary to that, I want to get everybody to grab the rocket, the pear, the dressing, and the parmesan, and get that in one stack ready to go. That's going to be for our salad a little bit later on. Now for main course, we're going to have your duck ragu. You should have got 6 little containers. There'll be some Parmesan cheese, some salt, pepper, and ricotta salata. We've got our fresh pasta sheets, which we're going to roll together. But we've also included in there some dry pasta. That's in case there's any problems along the way. We have any mishaps rolling or any lost fingers, hopefully not along the way. But we've got the dry pasta as a backup, ready to go, just in case we need it. So we've also got, as Kaspar said, 2 of our great wines, 2 Pinots, which we're going to pair perfectly with tonight's dinner.
Well, we better knock the lid off one of them. We'll start. It doesn't matter which one you open first, guys. You choose your own adventure. I'd probably recommend starting with the Rochford Estate 2019 first, but if you want to try the Don Lavoie, go for it. You'll notice that obviously they're 2 different Pinots. They're both Pinots, but they're very different. So I'll just quickly mention this first wine here is our 2019 Rochford Estate Pinot. So this is sourced from 3 of our 4 vineyards that we manage and grow ourselves. So we've got some of the fruit that's grown here on site at the winery in what we call the sort of central Yarra Valley in Coldstream, and then also some from the upper Yarra coming together into the glass. Here it is.
Virtual cheers. Virtual cheers. I think we should probably get everyone to open up all of their charcuterie now.
Oh yeah.
We'll get that laid out on the board. Presentation isn't a must. We're just going to get it on the board. We're going to get all our accompaniments on the board, set it up. This is just basically a little nibble so everyone can have something to eat and have something to drink just while we're getting set up. We've got, as I said, we've got some hot suppressor, we've got some mild suppressor, and we've got some 12-month aged prosciutto crudo, all produced locally from a little small goods supplier in Victoria here. The lavash we make in-house. That's just been seasoned with some poppy seeds and some lemon myrtle. Everything you see here is made in-house, and everything that you see here is also available in our shop. So if you haven't already, jump online and check out our shop. We've got some really nice stuff. And, if you really like tonight's dinner, you can buy it and try and replicate it again at home.
I can attest the these small goods are really good. All right. And this lavash. So can you talk me through the lavash, Raki? So you guys are making it here.
We're making
in the kitchen.
Here. Yep. So just a hand-rolled lavash, wafer thin cracker. Like I said before, just seasoned with a little bit of poppy seeds and some lemon myrtle, which is an Australian native.
Awesome. So what was the inspiration for the lemon myrtle on a cracker?
I just think it sort of helps cut through the fat in the small goods. So the suppressors are both quite fatty. The prosciutto, not so much, but it's just a nice little sort of acidic flavor profile.
Raki,
which
we
just
did
helps
have a
cut
question.
through. Yes.
Someone was asking who the small goods supplier was.
It is a Victorian, they're from Gippsland, Bellotto. If you've got any questions regarding anything here, I'm more than happy. Just shoot me some emails through after this and we can send you links. And like I said, we've got everything that's here is also available in the shop. So yeah, you can purchase from here or we can sort of help you along your way for purchasing outside.
Can you buy the lavash?
Yep, and we can buy the lavash as well. That's available in the shop 24/7 online with the 2-day delivery. So pretty good considering what we're going through at the moment with Australia Post.
It's a beautiful crunch. It's a beautiful crunch.
Perfect.
So Pinot, why Pinot and pasta, or why Pinot and duck, or why Pinot and charcuterie board? Well, Pinot is a pretty versatile red wine, as you guys know already. It's pretty subtle in its flavor profile, pretty fresh, spicy, and marrying really well with this little selection that Rahi's put together here. It's a wine that you can drink at lunchtime, at dinner time. At this time in our lives, we need something versatile because, let's be honest, things are a bit different at the moment, but that's okay. As long as you've got a good glass of Pinot, hopefully you're going to make it through the day. Yeah. So, all right. So we've got the charcuterie boards happening here. We're just going to be able to nibble away as we go. It's good to have something to chew on while you're cooking.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do now is just going to double check to make sure everybody's got their ovens on. That's just for the bread. So about 160 is fine. What you want to do now is just grab your loaf of bread, pop it in the oven, set your timer for about 14 minutes, and we'll come back to that in a little bit later. We should have some water sort of slowly simmering away at the moment. We don't want it to come to the boil yet. We're a little bit off that, but if you've got it nice and hot and close, it'll be a lot easier later on when we get ready to cook the pasta. So just simmer that away gently. Then what we're going to do next is we're going to grab our pasta sheets.
Raki, we have a birthday. You say hi to, happy birthday to Michael.
Happy birthday, Michael. Hope you're having a great day and this will be a nice dinner. So what we're going to do is, Cass, I'll get you to open that up.
Right. So some fresh pasta that, again, you guys have
we've made here all by hand.
Happy birthday to Erica for her 50th birthday.
Wow, happy birthday, Erica. 50. I'm sure you don't look a day over 30.
Okay, so we should have our sheets here. What I'm going to get everyone to do is also grab their semolina. The semolina is what we're going to use to roll out the sheets. So everybody just grab a good generous pinch of semolina onto your work surface.
So semolina, what is that?
So semolina is basically a derivative of durum wheat. So durum wheat is the base wheat which you get all your flours from. So you're going to get your double O flours, you're going to get your plain flours, your wholemeal flours. All comes from durum wheat. It's just processed differently to get a different result. Okay. What this is as a byproduct of semolina. It's not necessarily fine enough to make flour out of. Okay. So it's a little bit coarser in its texture, but that's going to be really great. And it's really good for coating and rolling pasta, because what that's going to do is it's going to coat your pasta. It's going to aid when we roll it out. It's going to stop helping it stick when we drop it into the water, but also it's going to cook onto the sheet, which is going to give that pasta a really good binding agent for the sauce to stick to.
Oh, awesome.
So we're going to get the sauce really nice and sticky on the sheets. We're going to get some nice separation, and we're going to also get a nice bit of mouthfeel and texture.
Perfect. We do love texture.
Perfect. So
another birthday for Bella tomorrow.
oh, happy birthday, Bella. What's going on? Birthday city. All right, so we've got all our pasta sheets. What I suggest is we have one person rolling the sheets and another person's going to sort of help to separate the sheets as we go. The best and easiest way to remove the sheets from the paper is to find a corner where it's most accessible, peel a little bit off, then we're going to flip the sheet over, run your thumb along the back, and just peel it off like a sticker. All right, I'll get you to start rolling these out.
Cool.
When you're adding the semolina, you want to be pretty liberal. You can't sort of really have too much. What's going to happen is that semolina is going to coat the pasta. We're going to sort of start in the drying process of the pasta. And there's only so much semolina that's going to be able to coat on the outside of the pasta. Once we drop it into the water, anything that's excess on there is just going to evaporate and fall off and go into the water.
Okay.
It's
So
also,
you can't use too much.
you can't use too much at this stage. And what's going to happen too is that semolina, when it gets into the bottom of the water, we're going to keep a little bit of that water.
Okay.
We're going to use that to season our pan and season our sauce. So it's just going to add another little thickening layer and a bit more flavor.
Okay, cool. So are we trying to make the sheet a whole lot longer than it was
No,
when we got it? Or?
We only want to sort of get it maybe
A bit longer than that?
5 centimeters longer than what it is now.
Okay.
We're just sort of, the pasta's been relaxing for a long time and we just want to sort of get it nice and stretched out, get a bit more tension in that dough for when we cut it.
Yep. Okay, so it's covered in
All right,
semolina.
so a little bit more semolina before we
Bit more.
cut.
Okay.
And then what I'll get you to do is just give it 4 folds.
Okay.
Make sure when you're doing this, you really want to do it lightly, because what's going to happen is if you roll it too much, the sheet's going to stick together. And when you cut it, then the pasta sheet will stick together and it becomes a little bit harder to separate. So
we're turning a lasagna sheet,
essentially, yeah.
Into what sort of pasta are we in?
We're going to make some pappardelle for tonight.
Pappardelle. So what is pappardelle?
Pappardelle essentially similar to tagliatelle or a linguine, but just a little bit wider.
Okay.
So we're going to cut this sheet, which we've rolled now, into 4 even pieces.
Okay. So divide it into 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Perfect. Again, a little bit of semolina before we unroll. And when you unroll, just be really generous with the semolina and be really mindful just to mix it all through, just to stop anything from sticking together. It's just going to help us along the way when we're cooking. So.
It's got quite a girth on it, doesn't it?
It does, it does. So as we're rolling,
and the color of the pasta, Raki. So what else is in? So we've got wheat in here.
Yep.
Some egg.
Some egg yolks.
Egg yolks.
And some olive oil.
Okay.
One of the biggest questions we sort of get is, what's the difference between like a really bright yellow pasta and something that's a little bit more opaque?
Yeah.
And it's just the quality of your ingredients. So free range organic eggs and really good quality olive oil is just going to give it that really vibrant yellow color, which you see here.
Yep, awesome.
So everybody should have 4 sheets in their pack. There are a couple of people out there with, I think 3 people. So you'll just have, it's basically 2 sheets per person. So hopefully we're giving everyone enough time to get the pasta rolled out. If you're lagging a little bit, or if you've got any questions or having any difficulties putting the pasta together, if you just want to shoot your hand up now or put a question through, that will be great. All right.
Semolina.
Also too, I don't advise anybody cutting their pasta like we are on the bench. We've got a special surface here which allows us for that. So probably a good idea to cut on your chopping board at home.
We can't be held responsible for the new marble bench top, can we?
No, definitely not. All right, perfect.
Pasta.
All right.
Kaspar, people are commenting that they think you make a good apprentice.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know, making wine it's nothing like cooking, but it's exactly like cooking in some way, but it's only cooking with one ingredient usually. So it's cooking for simple people.
All right, perfect. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to get everyone to get their duck ragu. So after tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to email everybody with a recipe for the ragu. And if you've got any questions about anything tonight or any concerns or anything you need to know, shoot us an email and I'll get back to you and we'll run you through anything. But the recipe will be coming out to you guys in the next day or so. Maddie will make sure of that. Really simple ragu, just some braised down duck legs, some onions, some garlic, some thyme, some tomato, some of Kaspar's great wine, and a little bit of olive oil. So super simple, but I think the pair marry really well together. So
ragu, how does ragu relate to how do you differentiate between a ragu and a Bolognese, for example?
Well, technically a Bolognese is a ragu.
Okay.
It's just a slow process of cooking down the sauce with the meat.
Yep.
But traditionally, what you'll find is with something that just specifically states as a ragu is that you've got sort of more of a robust cut of meat. So you've got your duck legs, or you've got lamb shoulder, or you've got beef shoulder, anything that's really big and meaty and heavy, which requires a long cooking time. So all those secondary cuts are really good. And all of those fatty cuts that are on the bone, just really lend themselves really well to ragu. And they're going to cook down really slowly. And what's going to happen is over time, when you're cooking a ragu down, you're going to impart all of the flavor out of the bones and out of the fat. And that's going to explode through the sauce.
It is, my mouth is watering just talking about that slow cooking.
So what we're going to do now is I'm going to get everybody to open their ragu. Everybody should have a saucepan as well. And we're just going to get the ragu into the saucepan. And we're going to reserve that for a little bit. All right, so
while that's happening, we might just quickly talk a little bit about the next wine. So the first one we tried was the 2019 Rochford Estate Pinot. And this next one is the 2018 Don LeBois Pinot. So it's not critical, but the Rochford Estate Pinot is retailing for about $38 a bottle. And then the single vineyard Don LeBois is about $54 a bottle. So they're both Pinots. The Don LeBois is sourced entirely from a small, very high altitude Upper Yarra vineyard in Gembrook. So it's probably, it's a bit more of a complex Pinot, I guess, than the Rochford Estate. Not that it's got its highlights by itself, but this one's probably a little bit more individual in its character, I guess. So we don't have to finish the first glass before you go on to this next one, but purely because you've got two Pinots at home with you, I think it's kind of cool to look at them next to each other. And if you pour yourself a nice sized glass of this 2018 Don LeBois Pinot, something that you hopefully will find is that this wine really evolves with time open. So swirl it around, get a little bit of air in there. If you don't want to swirl it, that's totally cool. You don't have to, but the reason we're doing that is just to get a bit of air to push the aromas out of the wine a bit more. So yeah, the Upper Yarra generally gives us some really sort of foresty aromas, a little bit more in that dried herb, spicy. It's not just the charcuterie board, which is imparting those aromas, but you're getting like a little bit of that smoked meat, certainly some mushrooms, that kind of thing. Okay, cool. So the other interesting thing about tonight is that you've got a Pinot from 2019 and one from 2018. So as vintages go overall, pretty similar. 2018 was probably a warmer vintage overall, whereas in 2019 we had a sort of warm spike towards the end. So to answer your question, what is the best vintage? It's like saying, what is your favorite child if you have more than one, or if you're, you know, if you've got 3 dogs at home, try and choose your, well, maybe you can, I don't know. But I guess they both have their subtleties and, you know, sort of pros and cons, I guess. In 2018, you're going to see more, or a warmer year, you're going to get probably richer fruits coming through in the wine, with a little bit more ripeness and perhaps a little bit more tannin, which is that texture that you get on the Pinot there. And then 2019 probably had a slightly higher amount of acid in the wine, so it's probably pushing through a bit more of that freshness. And freshness is something that is wildly important to not just myself, but I guess, you know, hopefully everything we're doing at Rochford is about creating a refreshing experience. That probably sounds a bit cheesy, but I'd honestly, like, in the winery in particular, the thing about wine is that we can get swept up in taking it too seriously. At the end of the day, it's a drink, which we should take seriously because it's interesting, but it's got to provide some refreshment factor. And the other important thing about the wines that we make here are that we're sort of building wines for the table. They're wines that you can drink by themselves if that's what you're into, but hopefully they're going to go well with food. And it's that acidity, texture, flavor that's hopefully all coming together and, you know, being something interesting and working well with the food, and particularly with Raki's exceptional palate and his brain for combinations of ingredients and spices and what have you. And, you know, we're lucky that we've got these great vineyards to work with, but then at the end of the day, it's what happens in your life experience when you get to try that wine and put it with the food, and off we go. So anyway, enough of that waffle.
We've got a couple of questions coming through. First of all, we've got a question from Liz asking, what is more important for Pinot, grape physiology or site selection? Oh. And then just quickly before you
Good heavens, Liz.
we also have a question asking if the bread is supposed to be in the oven.
Oh, yes, the bread should be in the oven. I'm pretty sure we said that in the beginning, but if you haven't got it in already, pop it in now and set your timer for about 12 minutes. Your oven should be set to 160. So pop it in now, set your timer for 12 minutes if you haven't already. If you did earlier on, just double check that, make sure it's okay. And we want to get that out at about the 12-minute mark and just resting. So when we cook up the pasta, we should be ready to go.
Sorry, Maddie, what was Liz's question again?
The question was, what's more important, grape properties or site selection for Pinot?
It's a combination of both, really, to be honest, without sounding like I'm not coming out of the question. But if talking about where something is grown is like, okay, so picture yourself living in Melbourne. That's one version of yourself. If you live in Melbourne for 5 years, that's the kind of person, your environment will shape you, whether you like it or not. It's just what happens. Take yourself to Latin America. It's a different language. It's a different humidity. It's a different climate. The beaches are a bit different. The food's a bit different. The way that you turn out and the experience you have in that different place will, you know, you're gonna be the same person like you are with Pinot grown here or in Latin America, but that environment is going to change the flavors. It's going to change your outlook on the world. what have you. So I don't know if I've answered the question, Liz, but thanks a lot for throwing a curly one.
And is there going to be a 2020 Pinot?
Will there be a 2020 Pinot? There will. So 2020, if we look back on 2020, let's be honest, it's been a really tough year for so many things. A very emotional year for sure, and you know what happened in the vineyards it's nothing compared to what's happened in the world, of course. But we had basically in some vineyards we had down to 30% of the crop that we had in 2019. So we could say it was a pretty tough year, but I'm actually really happy with the way the Pinots are looking in barrel, and we'll bottle them just before Christmas. But I guess another sad thing is that there's a lot less of it this year, but it tastes good. So that's all we need to worry about.
All right, perfect. If we don't have any more questions, I'm going to make sure everyone got their pasta rolled and cut safely. No missing fingers, hopefully. We've got some nice fresh pasta on the bench ready to go. If anybody had any difficulties along the way, I'd advise you now to get your dry pasta into the water. That's going to take a little bit longer. So 6 to 7 minutes for any of you guys out there that had a bit of problems with this. Hopefully, fingers crossed, there wasn't. But now what we're going to do is on a separate burner, the duck ragu that we reserved earlier, if we can just pop that onto a medium to low heat. And just, sorry, before we jump into the questions, just want to make sure everyone's got that on a low heat, and we're just going to bring that up really slowly. Once you sort of start to see it bubbling away, that's where we want it. And then we're going to turn it right down to as low as possible and just let that sauce reduce down a little bit and simmer away.
So quick question first of all, important one, does the dry pasta have egg in it?
The dry pasta does have egg in it. Yes.
And another question for you, Kaspar, was, so should we buy more of the 2019 wines if the yield was that much lower?
Well, sorry, 2019, though, the yields were good, but the wines are good. Yeah, well, so, I mean, we all need wine, don't we? So, yeah.
There's a lot of nodding going on the screen.
Yeah, no, we do. I mean, we certainly don't condone alcoholism, but, you know, drink in moderation, respect your friends, respect your family, respect yourself. And
be kind.
Yeah, just.
We also had another question about what does reserve mean?
What does reserve mean? Reserve is a very complex word in wine. It's actually not a word that I like to use at all in wine. And luckily here at Rochford, we don't actually have any reserve wines per se, but reserve is generally like your best parcel of wine or fruit. So here we have, as you probably know if you've tried our wines before, we've got a whole lot of different ranges of wine. But we've got our Rochford range, and then it moves up to the estate range, and then it goes right through the single vineyard wines. And I guess it's the single vineyard wines which are our sort of flagship or most specialized wines, and they're kind of like our reserve wines, if you will. But the word reserve, there's not actually like an Oxford dictionary definition of it for wine. That's why I think it's a little bit silly, because it doesn't actually mean anything other than, it could mean anything. You could have a reserve wine for $10 and, you know.
Actually, it was, put another point to the question. It was actually not, it was for cooking. Reserve the duck sauce. What does that mean?
Sorry.
Ashley. What I meant by that is we're just going to put it on the side. So you should have your duck sauce slowly simmering away right now. And we've got that in reserve, ready to go for when we put our pasta in and put our sauce in. If the question was talking about reserving some of the water from when we cook the pasta, what we're going to do is when we strain the cooking liquid off from the pasta, we're going to keep about 100 mils, which for anybody out there who's not, too familiar with measuring a lot of stuff, about half of a cup. So half of a kitchen cup, coffee cup, reserve water in the pot later on when we cook the pasta.
Awesome.
All right, so
cooking fresh pasta as opposed to cooking dry pasta, is there anything we need to know about the difference between doing the two? Because they look different, and the texture's different, and maybe the fresh pasta looks like it's a lot more from rolling it out. It's got a lot more moisture and it's not very dry.
No. So the basic cooking principle is exactly the same. What you want to have is a full rolling boil of water. It's going to stop the pasta from getting claggy and undercooked. The main difference between the two is essentially at some point in this dry pasta's life, it looked exactly like this.
Right.
So this was this at some point.
Okay.
This has just been dried out
to preserve
it. So you can sell it, you can ship it.
Okay.
It's going to last, the test of time. But this is going to cook a lot quicker. So what might take 6, 7, 8 minutes, depending on your pasta in a dry format, this fresh pasta is going to take anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes.
Okay, so you've got to be on when you've popped it in, you've got to be looking.
You've got to be on. But basically what you're doing with the dry pasta is you're rehydrating it.
Sure.
So that's going to go into that boiling water. It's going to absorb all of the liquid.
And that's why it takes longer.
That's why it takes longer, because this hasn't dried out. It's still got all its moisture.
Yeah.
But what it's going to yield is a much more flavorful and textural result. So, all right. So sauce is ticking away. Water's close to the boil. What I'll get everyone to do now is to put that water pot onto high. And what we want to do is get that to a really full rolling boil. And what I mean by that is just like really heavy bubbles going away in your pot. Then we're going to really generously season the water before we put our pasta in. Traditionally, they say that your pasta water should taste like the sea. So it's not going to necessarily impart all of that salt into the pasta, but what it's going to do, it's going to take on some of it, and it's going to leave some salt in there for that reserve liquid, just to add a bit more flavor back through to the sauce.
Okay, and the salt. So, yeah, okay, because it's always a thing. You sprinkle a bit of salt in your pasta water, and off you go. But it's seasoning the. It's not just about increasing the boiling.
Definitely not.
Of the wine. It's about the bit of flavor going into the pasta.
That's right. And as well with the salt, it's really similar in what we were doing with the semolina earlier.
Yeah.
There's only so much that is going to go into that.
Okay.
So even if you over season it, this is only going to absorb a certain amount of salt.
If you live near the sea and it hadn't rained for a really long time, you could technically use seawater for your pasta cooking.
You could give it a go.
Okay.
Sure.
Before we go through the pasta, we've got someone asking what the difference is between the Don Loire and the Pinot.
Okay, cool. So the first difference, there's a few. The first difference is the location of the vineyard. So the Don Loire Pinot comes from a vineyard in Gembrook in the Upper Yarra, which is probably about a 45-minute drive from us here at the winery in Coldstream. And the L'Enfant Pinot is grown in 2 little blocks just in the winery vineyard here in Coldstream. So the Don Loire fruit those vines are they were planted in the mid-90s, and the Pinot vineyards here that go into the L'Enfant Pinots, were planted in the sort of early to mid-80s. So the L'Enfant vineyard's a bit older. And generally, Coldstream's a slightly warmer site than Gembrook. So you're going to get probably more perfumed, fine-boned Pinot in the Don Loire, whereas the L'Enfant Pinot is, it's generally got a bit more tannin. It's also got this sort of kind of wild edge to it. It's quite spicy. It's a hell of a wine. It's great. So.
The other question was, do we filter at all, or is there any batonnage?
So we don't really do batonnage for any of the reds. So basically it's just, the Pinots are mostly wild yeast fermented. So we do some whole bunch fermentation. I'm not going to go right into that, but that's where you basically get the bunches out of the vineyard, you ferment them with the stalks and everything. But most of what we do is we take the berries off the stalks and ferment them in a pot with using the wild yeast. and then we leave it on skins for a few weeks. We either pump it over or plunge it, and then we run it to barrel, and it stays in barrel on its yeast cells for basically its whole life until we pull it out for bottling. So with the filtration question, it's a case-by-case basis. We do some filtering and sometimes we don't. So it depends on the particular wine.
All right, that sounds like a lot of people have got their past water already boiling.
All right. All right, perfect. So now the pasta water is boiling. We're going to get somebody to put this salad together. We've got our rocket, parmesan, balsamic dressing, and some roasted pears. Everything's been weighed out. Everything's perfectly measured for you guys out there. So just dump everything in there. Seasoning is purely optional and a personal preference. So whatever you like.
The pear and rocket salad, is that like a traditional provincial Italian salad?
It definitely is, but it's a salad that not just goes well with pasta, but with loads of different dishes. I mean, it's got everything a perfect flavor profile. It's got bitter rocket leaves. It's got salty parmesan, sweet pear, and some really nice acidic flavor profiles from the balsamic, which just sort of cut through everything. Which is going to pair really well with the duck. It's going to pair really well with the Pinot. And it's just a nice little side. Really nice with braised meats, but just, goes well with a variety of different things.
And some texture and a bit of color.
Bit of texture and a bit of color, which everybody loves. All right. So, water's boiling away. Somebody over there should be mixing the salad. Pop that into your bowl so you're ready to go. We're going to grab our pasta. One big handful. Pop that straight into the water. We're just going to let that sit away in there for about a minute and a half. Give it a nice stir. What you're looking for when this pasta is going to be cooked is it's going to lose that really vibrant, fresh yellow color, and it's just going to take on a bit more of an opaque, translucent. So you'll be able to slightly see through it. It'll just lose that really, really fresh yellow edge. And just cook through really nicely. You're not really going to overcook it. 1.5 minutes to 3 minutes is sort of the window that you're looking for. We're just going to gently stir that. There's a really common myth when you're cooking pasta is that you need to put oil into the water to prevent the pasta from sticking. But all you really need is 10 times the amount of water to what you've got in pasta. So if you've got 100 grams of pasta, a liter of water, and so on and so on and so on. And that's just going to add enough volume of water in there to break up the pasta and just to sort of get it all moving in there so it's not going to stick together. Another really, really important key is that that water is boiling, because if it's not boiling, what's going to happen is the pasta is going to get claggy and it's going to sort of just, everything's going to undercook. And
so we don't need to put a lid on that?
No lid. So there's not enough volume of pasta in there to sort of bring the heat down. Okay. When you put that pasta in there, it's going to reduce the temperature, but if it's on high, there's enough heat in that and enough heat underneath it to get that pasta boiling away pretty well. And so we're looking for that color change rather than, because it's quite a quick process. So we're definitely not throwing the pasta on the window, are we? No, we're definitely not. That's just going to tell us that we've got overcooked pasta. So as you can see, Yep, so in the salad, we've got some fresh rocket leaves. We've got some 18-month-old aged parmesan. There's some roasted pear and just a aged balsamic dressing. In the dressing, it's really, really simple. Just some mustard, some balsamic vinegar, some olive oil, and seasoned with salt and pepper. All right, so our pasta should be ready to go. As you can see, really sort of translucent. You can see my hand behind it through the pasta. And what you want to feel for is that you should be able to squish the pasta and it breaks. It's not too soft, it's not too hard, but we should be about perfect now. So everybody should have their colanders set aside. I'm going to take our pasta off. Now, really important here, when we strain the pasta off, it's really, really important that we reserve that 100 mils of liquid, because that's going to really aid in helping to thicken our sauce a little bit. Because like I mentioned before, while we were seasoning the pasta with the semolina, all of that excess semolina that's on the pasta is going to sink to the bottom. And when we add that reserved liquid into the sauce, that's going to bind everything together and just help the pasta sauce stick a little bit more to the pasta. So go ahead and strain off your pasta.
We should point out that there's he's not pouring it on the floor. There's a column.
Don't pour it on the floor. Okay. So on the other burner, you should have your sauce just ticking away nicely over there. We've got our reserve liquid. Just going to pour that into the sauce now. Now, we don't want all of that water in there. We just want to get maybe about 70% of that liquid that we've put in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn that up to a medium-high heat now. And we're going to let that sauce come up to a bit more of a heavy simmer. Just needs a little bit of a shake in the pan. We're just going to evaporate some of that liquid that we've got in there. The semolina is going to be doing its thing in the sauce. And you'll see as that sauce is reducing down with that liquid in there, it's just going to get a little bit thicker and it's just going to help really bind to the pasta. So our pasta should be nice and strained off now. We're going to add that into the sauce. All right, now's the time where you want to add your grated Parmesan. Again, just another depth of flavor, but that's also going to help just bring the sauce together as well. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. Now, if your pasta sauce is boiling away really rapidly, just turn it down a little bit. We should have evaporated enough of that water now that we're just going to bring it right down to like a really low heat, really gentle simmer. I'm going to give it a nice little flick. Incorporate that duck sauce really nicely through it.
Wow. So important that the pan's big enough to allow for that mixing to happen.
Absolutely, it's the most important part. I mean, when you're cooking pasta at home, a big enough pan that you're going to fit the sauce, you're going to fit the pasta, where you don't have to struggle. Okay. If you're cooking for a big family, a big mixing bowl is a really good vessel. Yep. Just put your pasta in, put your sauce in, and just give it enough room so you can mix everything through nicely, because you don't want spots where there's no sauce, too much sauce.
Absolutely.
All of those things that come along with that. So basil and ricotta salata ready to go for garnish. Now, ricotta salata is basically, everybody knows what ricotta is. It's a cheese which is produced from, when you separate milk, you get whey and you get curds. So the ricotta in Italian actually means recooked. So they're basically recooking the wasted part of cheese making to produce ricotta. And then what we do with ricotta salata is that it's salted and dried. So you get a really smooth, fine finish, great for garnishing. It's not going to overpower the sauce.
Because it's quite subtle, isn't it?
Really subtle, and just really soft and delicate. So we don't sort of want to interrupt the flavors of the ragu too much. So that's a perfect garnishing sauce, cheese. So we've got our pasta ready to go. Now, when we serve pasta, the best way to do it, if possible, is to take half of the pasta, give it a little twist. Then you're going to take the other half of the pasta. You want to leave as much of the sauce and ragu in the pan as possible at this stage. And then that gives us a perfect amount to equally divide across our bowls. We've got our ricotta salata, we've got our basil. Now, everybody's bread should be out of the oven as well. So we've got our fresh bread out of the oven.
Perfect. Slice that up.
Okay, we've got our salad, we've got our bread, we've got our pastas, some nice fresh basil leaves. some of that ricotta salata. And there we have it.
Perfect.
Perfect, ready to go. So, bon appetit from everyone here at Rochford. Thanks everyone for joining us. Hopefully we can do this again. It's been really great, and you know, it's been a difficult time. So for you guys' support, it's really important to us, and we're really thankful for everything you guys have done to support us and to keep us here. So hopefully this was a bit of fun for you, and hopefully we can plan a few more in the future. If anybody's got any more questions regarding the pasta before we sign off, probably now's the time.
I love you, Dad. I love you, Dad.
And we'll make sure all of the details get sent out to you guys in the next couple of days. So you can have a copy. You can have a copy of the recipe
I love you, Dad.
for yourselves at home.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone. Stay safe, and we welcome you back to us here at Rochford when the time's right. All the best. Cheers.
Cheers.
We love you, Dad. We love you, Dad.